We have all felt those days when the world seems to conspire against us. Every light is red, every conversation feels strained. We push harder, yet the resistance only grows. Then there are the other days, moments where doors open before we even reach them. You think of a person, and they call. You need a solution, and it appears in a passing remark. Most of us view these as mere streaks of luck or random coincidence, but there is a specific mechanism behind these shifts. Have you ever noticed how a single tiny decision can suddenly change the entire atmospheric pressure of your life? This is not about chance. It is the first sign that you have slipped onto a different track. Most people are living in a reality they didn't actually choose. We often treat these shifts in momentum as background noise. We assume life just happens to be difficult one week and effortless the next. But when you look closer, a strange consistency begins to emerge. Think back to a time when you felt completely in the zone. Opportunities arrived without effort. People appeared exactly when you needed them. It felt as if you were walking downhill. Now compare that to the moments where you felt blocked at every turn. No matter how much logic or effort you applied, the result remained stagnant. Something unusual happens in moments like these. We tend to focus on the external problem, yet we overlook the subtle internal frequency that preceded it.
Why does the flow vanish just as quickly as it arrives? We often assume we are victims of our circumstances, but we may have been misinterpreting the signal entirely. This pattern appears more often than we realize, and it suggests that reality isn't just happening to you. Watch closely, because the mechanism behind this is far simpler than most people imagine. Think about a day that started with a small, genuine spark of excitement. Perhaps you followed a sudden urge to take a different route or call an old friend. Suddenly, the entire day unfolded with an uncanny precision. You met the right person. You found the exact information you needed. It felt as if you were being carried by an invisible current. We usually brush these moments off as having a good day. But then consider the alternative. The days where you force yourself through a routine you dislike. On these days, the world feels heavy. Machines break. People are irritable. Minor inconveniences snowball into major setbacks. This is the strange consistency many people notice. We assume these cycles are random, but the repetition suggests something deeper. Have you ever noticed how quickly the flow can disappear the moment you start to doubt it? This is where the pattern becomes clear. We aren't just experiencing random streaks of luck or misfortune. These aren't just days, they are symptoms. Most people overlook this because they see these events as separate occurrences.
In reality, they are the breadcrumbs of a specific trajectory. The repetition begins to reveal a hidden structure behind our daily experience. This is where the experience begins to make sense. We often think of a timeline as a distant science fiction concept, a place we have to travel to. But in reality, a timeline is simply a frequency. It is less like a destination and more like a radio station. You do not create the music. You simply tune into the broadcast that is already playing. This reveals something important about how reality works. The shifts in flow and resistance you've noticed are actually your internal navigation system at work. What we call excitement or alignment isn't just a fleeting emotion. It is a precise physical signal. It is the compass needle telling you that you are currently vibrating at the same rate as the version of reality you prefer. When you feel that spark, you aren't just feeling good, you are synchronizing with a specific trajectory. Suddenly, the pattern becomes easier to understand. The bad luck days were not punishments. They were simply the static that occurs when you are tuned between stations. This teaching is much simpler than we often expect. It suggests that you don't need to build a new life. You only need to stay on the frequency of the one that is already here. This is the hidden rule behind the experience. Most people believe they are moving through a single, solid world where events happen in a linear sequence.
But the mechanism is actually much closer to a film projector. A movie appears to be a continuous flow of motion, but it is actually a series of static frames shifting 24 times every second. Reality functions in the exact same way. You are not moving through one world. You are shifting through billions of static parallel realities every moment. This explains why the pattern behaves this way. Your internal frequency, your state of being, is the lens that determines which frame you see next. Think of it like a navigation system. When you follow your excitement, you are inputting a specific coordinate. The system then calculates the most direct route to that version of yourself. Why does the flow disappear the moment we ignore the signal? Because when you choose an action based on fear or obligation, you are literally switching channels. You haven't lost your path, you have simply tuned in to a different broadcast. This mechanism has been operating in your life the entire time, quietly guiding every ordinary moment. Every decision is a toggle switch. Suddenly, the shift begins to make sense. You aren't trying to change the world, you are simply choosing which version of the world you wish to perceive. If the mechanism is so simple, why do we find it so difficult to stay aligned? This is where many of us lose the signal. The moment excitement appears, a secondary voice often follows close behind. It is the voice of logic, caution, and social expectation.
We have been taught to believe that excitement is a luxury, or worse, a form of impulsiveness. We mistake our fear for maturity and our hesitation for wisdom. This is the moment the inner voice begins to argue, telling us that the path of least resistance is somehow irresponsible. How many times has caution silenced the signal of excitement in your own life? When we listen to that doubt, we aren't just being careful, we are actively switching our frequency back to a state of lack. We choose the familiar weight of struggle over the uncertainty of flow, because we have been conditioned to trust effort more than alignment. This internal tug-of-war is the only thing that creates the friction we see in our external lives. Have you ever noticed yourself doing this? If you have felt this signal and ignored it because it didn't seem realistic, share your experience in the comments. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking it. Despite the noise of the inner critic, the method for shifting timelines is deceptively simple. It is not about a massive life overhaul. It is about how you handle the very next moment. The formula is a 3-step navigation process. First, identify the option available to you right now that contains even a tiny bit more excitement than any other. Second, act on that excitement to the best of your ability, using every resource you have. Third, and most importantly, do so with absolutely zero attachment to what the outcome should look like.
This is how the signal becomes action. We often stall because we are waiting for a grand sign, but the mechanism responds to the smallest curiosities. This process works best when followed with a sense of light-hearted exploration rather than the pressure to succeed. By acting on the spark, you are telling the navigation system that you are ready for the next coordinate. This is where the shift in your timeline actually starts. It is a moment-to-moment commitment to the frequency of who you truly are. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations like this. If these ideas helped you see your daily choices differently, leave a like so more people can discover this hidden pattern. The change rarely starts with something dramatic. It usually begins in the silence of an ordinary afternoon.
Imagine you are working on a task that feels heavy and uninspiring. Suddenly, you feel a small, quiet impulse to walk to a nearby bookstore or look up a specific topic you haven't thought about in years. Most people dismiss this as a distraction, but imagine if you followed it. While browsing the shelves, you overhear a conversation that contains the exact solution to the problem you were struggling with at work. Or perhaps you run into an old acquaintance who mentions an opportunity that perfectly matches your skills. This is often how the shift begins.
By following that tiny spark of curiosity, you stepped off the track of resistance and onto a timeline where the information you needed was already waiting. How many times has a small decision changed the direction of your day? You may have already experienced similar moments without realizing their significance, dismissing them as mere luck. The signal usually appears in small moments, hiding behind the guise of a simple whim. When you act on it, you aren't just changing your schedule, you are allowing the navigation system to recalculate your entire trajectory. This suggests something remarkable about the nature of reality. We often live as though we are trying to build a future that doesn't yet exist, but the pattern reveals a deeper meaning. If every choice is a shift in frequency, then the right timeline isn't a place you are going, it is a version of reality that is already here, vibrating alongside you in this very moment. This changes the way we understand the experience of life itself. You are not a traveler moving across a vast empty landscape. You are an observer, selecting which frame of existence to illuminate with your awareness. Could these signals be guiding us toward versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? This implies that you never have to force reality to change. You only have to change the version of yourself that perceives it. The struggle we feel is often just the friction of trying to be someone we are not. When you follow the spark, you aren't just doing a task. You are reclaiming your natural resonance. You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization in your own life, noticing that the more you act as your true self, the more the world seems to reorganize itself around you. Reality is not a fixed cage. It is a mirror, waiting for you to choose the reflection you wish to see. Perhaps the signal has been there all along, hidden beneath the noise of a busy mind. Staying on the right timeline is not an act of will or a feat of strength. It is an act of listening. As you move through the next few hours, you may begin to notice something new. A subtle curiosity might feel a little louder. A moment of friction might feel a little clearer. Sometimes the shift begins simply by noticing that you have a choice in how you resonate with the world. The pattern is already unfolding around you, waiting for you to recognize your own reflection in the flow of events. How often have these signals appeared quietly in your life, only to be dismissed? As you start to honor these small sparks, the mystery of how reality functions becomes a lived experience. The exploration of how these internal frequencies shape our external world goes even deeper. And the next chapter of this journey reveals exactly what happens when you consistently follow this signal into the unknown.